Hello, everybody. Thank you for watching The Naturalist Capitalist. I am your host, Reed Coverdale, and we've got something really special tonight. We've got two fights on the same show at the same time. So, of course, we've got David Fite. How's it going, man?
I'm doing good. Happy to be back.
Absolutely. And we've got Will Fite. How's it going, Will?
It's going great. Glad to be on.
So the first question is, are you guys related? I mean, are you like distant cousins or what's going on here? Any idea? Or have you researched or?
So I have actually, my mom spent the whole quarantine doing an entire back catalog of our entire family. If Dave and I are related, it's like 300 years removed at this point. Because from what I can tell, is our family's been here since like the 1600s.
Oh, wow.
Depending
In
on
Oklahoma?
No, just all over.
Okay.
And it depends on where it is. There's multiple origins of it, but there's one. I don't know if you've ever heard this one, but Henry Fite, he owned a tavern in Baltimore during the Revolution. It's called the Henry Fite House, and they held a meeting of the First Continental Congress there while they were on the run for the British. So you might want to look into that. You might find something cool about that.
That's dope.
So in other words, we're American as hell,
Mhm.
and everyone else can just suck it.
Right. Every time somebody asks me, like, what are you? That my answer is always American, because I can trace my heritage depending on which parent. I'm part Native American. I can trace part of it back to the Germans that sold New York to the British, and I can trace part of it back to Plymouth. So, like, my family's been here for fucking ever.
So the Fites are actually Swiss German too. We're not Maine German. We're Swiss German.
Right. Yeah, most of the rest my mom is like almost 100% German also. So like
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of German. I was made to drink and smoke.
So I did one of those 23andMe's, and I found out that I'm actually more English Irish than I am German, and I was like very angry internally about that. I was just like, God, I don't want to be English. I would much rather be more German, because at least it would make the alcoholism at least make a little bit more sense.
You guys are hurting my feelings. The Coverdale, that's a very British name. But my ancestors came over on the Mayflower, so I'm pretty American too. I think it's Cherokee blood too. Or no, Iroquois blood.
Oh, that's even cooler than Cherokee.
Yeah, it's
Facts.
I think it's more than Elizabeth Warren has by a little bit. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oklahoma does not.
She ruined that for me, because like I used to always say that I was like part Native American, but obviously like I'm fairly white. I do tan well in the summer, which is weird for a German Irish dude, but I've always said that. And then she went and made an ass of herself saying that she was Native American. And I'm like, I can't ever say that again until I'm like 100% sure, like do a DNA test that I'm like at least like 1/16 or something.
Here's the thing. I did that as well. My mom has been telling me my entire life, yeah, we're Cherokee. We do the DNA test. There's no Cherokee, but get this. I'm 0.2% African.
Oh, you get reparations then. You don't get to go to school, but you get reparations, so you're good.
So now it's just the whole game has changed. Now I can't say I'm Cherokee, but can I say I'm black? Happy Black History Month, everyone. I'm glad you're watching. We're going to have a very hardcore look on race today. No.
Right. So actually, fun thing that I learned a couple of years ago was that mistruth, I'll call it, because I don't want to call it an actual lie, is actually like super common, that people would lie and say that they were Indian instead of black if they were like a light skin. If a white person married like a light skinned black person, they would lie and say that they were Indian because that was less shameful in like the early 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like a lot of people who think that they're part Indian and are actually, or part Native American and are actually part black.
Dave, the term you're looking for there is alternative facts. It's not mistruth.
There we go.
There's a whole. It's called it's called the Cherokee princess myth. There's a whole, and it's like everyone always has a Cherokee princess in their family line. That's what it was always explained to us as. There was no such thing as a Cherokee princess. Cherokees did not have royalty.
Right.
It was complete and utter bull crap that they made up to either claim to, like you said, or to just to be exotic. I'm not full white.
So,
Honestly, I
Will,
feel like if you are full white at this point, like that takes some work.
You're either just really lucky or you're a group of people that we're not very fond of.
So, Will, since this is your first time on, just give us some background on who you are, because everyone's bored to death of me and Dave. They know everything about us. So, just give us some info.
So I'm Will Fite, obviously. That's my name. You can make all the jokes you want. I've heard them all. Can't really address this much just because it's not good professionally, but I work for the National Association for Gun Rights. I'm a regional director with them, so I do a lot of gun stuff. Big fan of guns. But just overall, just a big liberty guy. I call myself a paleo libertarian just because I'm not. While I am actually quite socially progressive, I don't buy into the whole leftist destruction of what being actually progressive on social issues is. So just it makes it easier to okay, I have good morals, a good moral compass, I guess is a good way of putting it. I'm not just a complete absolute degenerate all the time because I have the right to be. I have things that I'm uncomfortable with, but I still respect people's right to be able to do what they want. So I guess that's kind of why I call myself a paleo libertarian. I always was a libertarian. I got really involved in like Liberty Twitter, which is I guess a thing. During the Amash campaign, the brief Amash campaign, I helped organize States for Amash, which was those state accounts. I helped start that and organize that with a good bunch of people who've actually a lot of them were really young. A lot of them were like 18, 19, and a lot of them I've noticed are really starting to become bigger names in Liberty Twitter, and it's really been cool to watch. There's one of them, Luke for Liberty, at Luke for Liberty. He's from Connecticut. I see him popping up all over people's feeds now. And like when Luke and I started that together, he helped me a lot. Luke had like 34 followers, and now he's sitting at like maybe 1,500 last time I checked. And I was like, you know what? That's awesome, because it's kind of a cool example of how Amash's campaign brought a lot of people who didn't realize they were liberty leaning into the movement as a whole. So that's where I got my start. And then I door knocked for Yal for one group of campaigns, and got a job through that.
In common there.
Well, which was it this year that you worked?
Yeah,
for
it was
Yale?
this year. Yeah.
What state?
Kentucky.
Okay. Fun
So
time.
here's a fun fact about that. I did some texting stuff for them one Sunday when we didn't have to door knock. My director was like, hey, shoot text with me. You'll make some extra money. Your name must have been thrown around there for doing it at some point.
Probably.
And then you didn't end up doing it. So they didn't pay me for it. And when he was like, yeah, did you get paid for that? And I was like, no. And he shot a text, and it was Justin Grice. Justin Grice texted him back and said, no, he never did it. And he's like, what are you talking about? I sat there with him for 6 hours and watched him do it. Like, yeah, David didn't do it. And I was just like, no, this is Will. Will Fite did this. So we have been confused for each other just based on
that. Explains the email. I got an email from Grice like 3 or almost a month and a half after I quit Yao, asking me for my payment information. And I responded. I was like, what is this for? And he was like, oh, never mind. This was for somebody else. I was like, all right, that was random.
That was me. That was for me.
All right.
Wow, that's a full circle story right there.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. I thought it was so funny because I think when we were really, really pushing for the Amash stuff, you popped up with one of those accounts, and I DM'd you about it, and you were like, yeah, we need to get organized. And I was like, here's our Discord. Join it. And I was telling everybody, yeah, there's another libertarian fight out there. I said, but he's from New York and I'm from Oklahoma, so I doubt we're very much alike at all.
To be fair, I'm from upstate New York, so
Yeah, and that's
originally. But you met me as New York City for a mosh, so yeah, it
yeah.
was that
I was
that
like,
was
oh lordy.
a false pretense a little bit. I did live there at the time, but not from there. My whole family is like rednecks from Western New York.
Okay.
My cousins own a farm. Like,
He can bump fire. He can bump fire an AR-15. He's got video evidence of it.
I can do that
without a bump
awesome.
stock, by the way. So I mean,
Great.
He's in my club. So.
So interesting thing about you saying that you're from that side, that part of New York. With the story I've heard about the family origin, that makes complete sense. There was groups of fights who lived out there, and then some of them moved to Ohio, and then some of them stayed in Ohio, and then some moved to Iowa, and that's where I come in. And there was 3 brothers in Iowa, 2 moved south, 1 moved to Oklahoma, 1 moved to Texas. I come from the Iowans, but I have lived in both areas in Texas and in Oklahoma where the other fights ended up. Very interesting stuff. Literally, I moved from Kansas City to Indianapolis when I was a kid. I lived in Indianapolis for like a year. I moved to Houston. I moved to a suburb of Houston called Pearland, Texas, and we discovered there was a fight road.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I actually have 2 very good friends of mine who are from Pearland, Texas.
Come on.
I lived with them for like a month and a half while I was running for office, and actually had one of them on my show. She's a dance instructor.
That's awesome. Small world.
It is. I love it. And then Mr. Reed over here, like, somehow knows all of my friends now, thanks to Twitter. And I see him getting in conversations with people like Brianna or like, other people from other campaigns that I've worked on. And I'm like, how do you guys know each other? Like, this is weird.
So Will, I want to talk to you about paleo libertarianism, because the way you described it, I mean, that's pretty much what I am. But I mean, like I'm not a dirty hippie like Dave. I don't do drugs or anything. So, I'm like,
you'd probably fit in with the paleos pretty well then.
Well, I'm a very personally conservative person, but my what I've heard of paleo libertarianism is that it's the intent of societal reforms to try to encourage other people to live the same way. It's not so much just a personal philosophy. Is that true, or is it really just
to an extent that is true? I'll say that paleo libertarianism, and really even the Hoppians to a lesser extent, which I love those guys. I'll get into that in a little bit, but they get a bad rap. Paleo libertarians kind of get always labeled as they're, either the Republicans who smoke weed. That's who they are. That's the real Republicans who smoke weed, which that isn't true. Majority of the paleo libertarians don't do drugs of any kind. They just get a really bad rap of being these fringe, halfway to alt-right libertarians who want to force morality or their own moral compass on everyone else.
Right.
And it's really not true. Paleo libertarians, while they do have more personal conservative social views regarding themselves, the only time they ever bring it up towards anyone else is if they're just trying to convince you to see the way they look at things. And I think I've had some interesting conversations with some Hoppians. I think that's just kind of the best example of those guys trying to talk to you about socially conservative ideology on their own personal way. So like you might know who he is. He goes by the moniker Emo Hoppian. Emo Hoppian and I have actually become pretty good friends. We talk on Telegram every now and then, and he is pretty personally socially conservative. And he's always like, my best friend is a lesbian. Love her to death. He's like, I just don't think that you should do stupid stuff like watch porn. Porn's bad for you mentally. Or don't do drugs. Drugs are hurting you mentally. Go run. Go to the gym. Read a book. Just be a good person. Settle down. Have a family. Teach them good morals. That's really what a majority of those guys are. They're not those. It's not the picture they get painted as of these neo-fascists who want to get rid of black people.
Right.
No, it's just the interesting thing that a majority of those guys aren't black, but it's just kind of how it is,
Yeah. So, I mean, it seems like I've talked with Dave about this on his show. I think if you are going to remove government policies, then you have to be more societally influential yourself, right? Like if you're going to remove these stupid laws, you don't want just chaos. You don't want everyone just, ripping shit up and having terrible livelihoods and not getting anything done. Like you'd have to step up and encourage your neighbor to, pick up the trash in his front yard. If you're not going to call the cops on him, then you're gonna be like, hey, dude, we live in a nice neighborhood here.
Exactly.
You cut your grass in 6 weeks. You want to do something about that. Like that seems like the only other way. If you're not going to have all these abusive government regulations and government encroachments on other people's lives, you've got to step up and say, hey, buddy, look, I'm doing my part. Time to paint the house or
and
whatever.
It's like the covenant community gets painted by a lot of opponents of it as a glorified HOA, and it's just like, and I guess in a way they're correct, but it's like that's just an oversimplification of it. It's like, oh, we live in a community that we all agree on having the same thing, so we interact together, we live together, we sign a contract, and we live together because of that. We have the same thing. But the minute you're not paying your house and you got trash in your yard and the community as a whole comes to you and says, hey, we all agreed to this, it's not a government. It's just people holding each other accountable. That's the way I always look at it. It's like, so, and that's on the covenant thing, it's like everyone always assumes that it's all socially conservative covenants. No, if you want to have a covenant of only gay people, have a covenant of only gay people. No one's stopping you from doing that.
Right.
Like there's a lot of the whole femboy thing, a lot of femboy Hoppians, and that's the way they look at it. It's like, you want to have femboy Hoppians, go for it. No one's stopping you from doing that.
Yeah.
So,
I have left libertarian friends who think that way. Zach Josephs, who's been on my show and Dave's show a lot, that's actually how he describes left libertarianism. And I'm kind of like, well, that's really just libertarianism, just the idea that every community can choose how it wants to live. And if, like you said, that's not government. When a community agrees to live a certain way and have a certain set of standards, if you're going to be part of that community, you've sort of got to live that way. I mean, that's just how it would work.
Exactly. And there's a whole nother, you can go down the rabbit hole of paleo-libertarianism just like you can with any other form of libertarianism. I mean, you go from paleo-libertarianism to Hoppians to neo-reactionaries, and it's just like, don't buy into all that stuff if you're talking just about paleo-libertarians if you're on the outside looking in. If you're looking at paleo-libertarians, just look at them as people who just have a certain way of looking at things. In most cases, it's basic Christian morality that they just look at things that way, and they don't really care what you're doing. Just leave them alone. And I think that's at the core of what libertarianism as a whole. I think a lot of people get caught up in the whole left libertarian, right libertarian thing. I mean, I get caught up in it too, but I think that's left libertarian, right libertarian is no different than identity politics.
Right.
It's manufactured to divide us more and more, and that's, I hate using the word duopoly just because it sounds so basic libertarian of me to say, but that's what they want. The state and duopoly, they want you to hate your fellow libertarian just because one of you likes smoking weed and the other one doesn't.
Right. Yeah. I think one of the biggest problems I've seen in the Libertarian Party lately, and especially on Twitter, because, it really brings the worst of everyone to the forefront, is that somehow even within the Libertarian community, people don't understand how you can do a thing without government. And so, we're talking about paleo-libertarianism. There's a difference between paleo-libertarianism and paleo-conservatism. Paleo-conservatism is douchey, and most of the bad things you hear about paleo-libertarianism are actually paleo-cons. Like those are the ones that want to use government or like force the people around them to be a certain way. They think that America can only be its best self if everyone is their best self, and so they want to like force this societal improvement in their mind, which, you know, part of me wants to agree with like 50-60% of what they say. You know, I like Will said, you know, I'm a huge fan of the nuclear families, like settling down, having a family, having a solid career, living a healthy lifestyle. You know, I smoke, but I don't like do crazy drugs. You know, I smoke because I think marijuana and is actually good for you. You know, I do psychedelics because, you know, they're proven to promote brain regeneration. Like I'll try to live a healthy life as much as I can, and I think other people should do that too. But I'm not going to use the government or anybody else to push that. And I'm not a paleo because I'm a big fan of like super lefty things a lot. You know, even though I don't do crazy drugs, I used to. I smoke hella weed. I went to pride parades. You know, like I can't consider myself a paleo because I surround myself with just way too much progressivism. But I think that, you know, we need to understand that there's other options than government. And if you're calling yourself a libertarian and then you hear somebody say, you know, I care a lot about the nuclear family, and your instant reaction is like, oh, you want the government to do a thing. It's like, no.
See, it's
there's other
interesting.
ways.
It's interesting you bring up the nuclear family because I've had very heated conversations with other people in the libertarian community. I had just a name drop just because I think it's interesting to include this person's name in the conversation. I had an argument with Brianna Coyle. Brianna and Coyle and I do not like each other at all. I say the name Lulbert a lot, and everyone assumes I'm talking about her. I just want to put it out there now on record. I don't consider her a Lulbert. I see a lot of potential in her as a libertarian. We don't agree at all. I don't like her at all. But hey, if you ever watch this, Brianna Coyle, I don't hate you as much as I think you think I do. But ultimately,
fun fact, she's one of my absolute best friends in the entire world, worked on my city council campaign, and I'm like hanging out with her this weekend.
Well, you'll have to tell her I said that because I
will.
Her and I get into it constantly, and I've called her some mean things, and she's called me a fascist, which I think is a mean thing. But I'll say this, you're not a Lulbert, Brianna. You have a harem of Lulberts around you, but you're not one. You have a lot of potential. I think she's got a lot of potential. Anyway, my point is she thought the whole nuclear family thing, she said it was homophobic. And it's because the old paleo libertarians of the 90s, the nuclear family was that 1950s husband, wife, 2 kids. Mm-hmm. The modern nuclear family, to me, as an evolved, I call it, like I said, an evolved paleo libertarian, it's just a 2-parent household. I don't care if it's 2 women, 2 men, just have 2 parents, because I think there's a lot of data supporting that a 2-parent household of 2, you know, caring and loving parents, no matter what, is always beneficial to the child involved. And I just think it just works well for. Mm-hmm. I was a product of a 2-parent household. I had 2 very loving parents, and I've had friends who were products of divorce, and they would agree with me, and they tell me, you know, I wish my parents were still together, because everyone I know whose parents are still together, while they might not be the best, you know, relationship at a whole, they feel more complete as a child. So for me, the you know, the nuclear family, big fan of that, but it doesn't have to be the standard. I guess I don't even want to use the word standard anymore. I feel like people are going to cancel me for that. It doesn't have to be the, you know,
old school version.
It just be together with the person you care about and raise a family. Yeah. And that's considered paleo libertarian. And that's the craziest thing to me, because they just feel like it's just a way to be happy. And that's really all the paleo libertarians want, people just to be happy.
Yeah, that's why I have not joined a caucus, you know, like, because there's a lot about the Mises caucus I like. There's a lot about the Prague, the radical, not so much about the LibSoc, but, you know, I mean, there's a lot about these different caucuses that I like, but I don't want to join any one of them, because I feel like this subdivision of libertarianism doesn't do us any favors, even if it might help people find an identity they resonate with. They instantly start building up walls once they figure out, oh, I'm this type of libertarian, instead of realizing, oh, I'm still a libertarian and I want to, kind of work with all these other libertarians. They start building up walls and really only considering that their version of libertarian is what a libertarian is. And I'm not accusing any of us of doing that, but it's just something that I've seen a lot of libertarians do. And it's why I haven't labeled myself as any type of libertarian or joined any caucus. The only thing I'm in is the Unity Coalition, which Dave and I are members of. And the whole idea of the Unity Coalition is just getting libertarians to work together and realize that
it's literally the opposite of a caucus.
Yeah, it's an anti-caucus sort of. I mean, it's just it's realizing who the enemy is. I mean, because you just admitted, even though you and Bronnie Coyle don't like each other, you guys, you have respect for her in a certain way. You think that there's potential there. And I think you guys probably both realize that the neocons and the statists and, they're that people that are opposition, it's not each other. And I just want to see, I want to see more of that, and just the compartmentalization of different types of libertarianism. It seems to foment that divide, I guess. I don't know.
I had someone. Oh, go ahead.
I feel like the caucus structure, its actual purpose is like to be a party within a party,
Right.
which sounds kind of dumb, but also can be useful. And, caucuses that do things in the right way, if we stopped the infighting, the existence of caucuses, I would still support, because I think, the Mises caucus, especially with their PAC, is able to do a lot of things that, they wouldn't be able to do without that structure. And I'm not sure that the Prags also have a PAC, but I think they do. So they're able to do things for candidates that we wouldn't be able to do if they didn't exist. So, but I think the divide needs to stop. The team sports mentality needs to stop, and the identity politics needs to stop. Will, you mentioned that Brianna called caring about the nuclear family homophobic. I had literally my most popular post on Twitter ever was caring about the nuclear family does not make you alt-right. That was it, just a send tweet, and got like 2,000 likes and just crazy amounts of responses that I've never seen before. And so much of it was that. And the problem that we have, especially just broad American politics, but we see it in the LP as well, is that you see a thing, you have an idea about a thing, and so you then interact like with believing your idea wholeheartedly without ever giving that person a chance to explain themselves. Obviously neither you nor I mean anything homophobic when we say we care about the nuclear family. Brianna knows me well enough to where she wouldn't call me homophobic, but a bunch of other people who don't know me did. And I don't mean that. Look up the actual like Webster definition of nuclear family. It's not homophobic anymore. It's been evolved. So me saying those words could also have evolved. If we try to understand people instead of just jumping down people's throats, like, oh, you said a thing that I disagree with. Like, oh, you said welfare, you said minimum wage, you said nuclear family, you said boogaloo, you said blue pilled or red pilled. Like, fuck off. Like, just understand people.
And see, that's such a product of the internet, though. Like, trust me, I was a Barstool Sports viceroy for a year. My job was to make people angry on the internet about sports. So
I'm jealous of that. That sounds like an awesome job.
I was 40 hours a week at some points, unpaid. It wasn't as great as you think it was. I loved it, had a great time, but oh my God, I had a lot of sleepless nights then. But anyway, my point is you have the internet where you have what is it now? Is it 180 characters or whatever?
240, I think, right?
240 now. God, it hasn't been. It hasn't been 180 for like 3 years now. Oh God! But you have 240 characters to explain a point or to make a statement. And I think I got into it with Justin Amash last week. And
Yeah,
at one point, I literally went, I don't think this is anything you or I could fully explain the nuance of our points in a tweet. And we just stopped. And it's just like, that's such a pitfall of the internet. So you see a statement like, the nuclear family isn't homophobic. People who, in some cases, it's people who are driven through emotion instead of logic. Which I always love saying that to people. Your argument is entirely driven off of emotion, not logic. Take a step back and think, and then get back to me. But people see that and they just go, nuclear family, homophobe. You're homophobic. Go die, homophobe. And it's just like, you can do that because of the internet. In reality, no one's going to actually, well, I mean, some would, but no one's going to walk up to your face and go die, you homophobe. Most people are going to be like, well, how? Explain yourself. And then you can have a full dialogue. The internet's ruined political discourse. It used to, well, you could argue Twitter has ruined political discourse. You used to be able to find message boards where people could have full on, dissertations about political points, and people have full dissertations, rebuttals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, YouTube.
That's why I love YouTube. Yeah.
I was going to say YouTube is great for political discourse. That's why I actually left Twitter. A lot of people thought my account got nuked. But
I remember that.
I left Twitter in maybe September last year because it was just, first of all, I had such an unbalanced following. I had Ann Capistan following me, and I would say something about how I didn't think national parks were evil, and I would just get bombarded with 150 comments. And I was like, I don't know why I'm here. I'm not influencing anyone. I've got a bunch of extremely hard right anarchists here, which is cool. I mean, I get along with those people, but I'm not getting any change here. And it was mostly from doing all the no libertarian under 1,000 follow trains. You just get the most toxic idiot.
I'll tell you that no libertarians under 1,000, I think, was so detrimental to the liberty community as a whole. Because so many people who didn't need a platform suddenly had a platform.
That's so true.
The rise of the lulbert was no libertarian under 1,000. There were so many more people that had a voice that did not need it at that time.
And they also had such a ridiculously mixed following that there was no possibility for peace and harmony, because the thing is, No Libertarians Under 1,000 was a copy of No Comrades Under 1,000, right?
Yeah.
And there were specific people, including myself, that used both. So, you cannot get something good out of that. There is no possible way that you can then post anything that your following approves of, because it's just all over the fucking place.
I built an entire Lincoln Project parody account off of that hashtag. I had the Jefferson Project, and I built an entire parody, and it just ended up me. At first, it was something based on principle, and I was talking to some people to turn it into a real thing, and then I got bored, and it just made it to me shit posting all the time. I didn't need an actual platform for me to shit post like that. I already had my regular account. But it's you get that in Liberty Twitter, man. You just get so many random people to follow you, like Reed was saying. I had a Ron Paul tweet go viral back in November, and I had a bunch of Trump people following me. And I was like, you guys are not going to want to stick around. I'm talking about Ron Paul, and they're listening to him talk about we need to get out of the Middle East. Like, yeah, America first. Give you a follow. Yeah, I like this guy. And I say one thing about we need to destroy the state. And they're like, whoa. It's not what I signed up for.
That's what I loved about the nuclear family tweet, because I got about 75 followers out of that tweet. And although it kind of coincided with the purge, but it was a couple days before that, I dropped about 45 of them within the following 24 hours. It went whoop, whoop.
I'll say this. During purges, you got to make it hot take season.
Oh, yeah.
When purges are going on, you just say the most radical shit you can think of. So you can just grab those people who are losing people and hope. Yeah. So they follow you, hoping you'll follow them back. But in reality, you're just mining followers. I did that. I tweeted a Ron Paul video of him at one of those debates, and I gained 50 followers in a day. And I was just like, We're back up.
Yeah,
I honestly didn't feel that last purge at all.
I felt
it's like
bad.
20, 30 followers max.
Yeah, my YouTube channel, the way it first took off is that video that's gone viral of me bump firing at M1 Garand. And I literally went from like 50 subscribers to 2,100 subscribers in like 36 hours. And so I was like, okay, I've got to make a video for these guys. So I made a video and I basically just shit all over Trump because this was last summer. I was like, hey, thanks for the following, guys. But if you're Republicans, you're really not going to like me. And I basically said the Republicans have done more to destroy gun rights than the Democrats could have ever dreamed of. So if you want to protect the gun rights, you might want to vote Libertarian. And I instantly lost like 100 followers just posting that video. And then I've been fighting like losing the followers I got from that video and then gaining subscribers from other content I've done. And I didn't finally push past that until like a week ago. And now I'm actually exponentially growing. I was like fighting this loss of Republican gun nuts who hated me because I was talking libertarian shit. And I've finally like overcome that wave and going up again. But it was kind of funny to watch.
I'll say about the Republicans who get pissed about Trump shit talking. I found being in Oklahoma was pretty MAGA, but also pretty liberty loving at the same time. If those guys would just take the whole 4 years of the Trump hating in the mainstream media, they would just shut it off for like an hour and just actually listen to what a lot of us are saying. A lot of them would realize we actually agree on a lot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just most of those guys just want to be left the hell alone. And it's just like, you don't realize that's what we want. Trump made you think that's what he wanted. And he made you think that's what he stood for in 2020. Like I got my ballot thrown away, definitely. So I didn't get to vote. I had an absentee ballot sent to me in Kentucky and it never showed up. So that was like the same time that a bunch of ballots were thrown away in Louisville. So probably didn't show up. I'll say this, and this is pretty radical of me. I probably would have voted for the guy. I don't like Trump at all. Probably would have, just because I didn't in the end like what the Joe campaign represented. That's a whole nother conversation. I think she pandered too much to the Bernie bros they were trying to bring in, just to take away from. At the same time, I'm glad I didn't get to vote because I would have never felt good about voting for Donald Trump. I didn't vote for him the first time. I abstained the first time, but it's just like one of those things where it's like if those MAGA people would actually escape the cult of personality and realize what we were talking about, LP would take off so quick.
Here's the thing, though. I know you said this is a whole different conversation, but I actually had Spike Cohen on my show a couple days ago, and we talked about how the campaign made a lot of mistakes and went wrong. But I will admit, if I were Joe Jorgensen, pandering to Bernie supporters actually sort of makes sense because the Trump people.
Oh, yeah, and it does make sense. I will agree with you before you expand on it. I agree. It was the right move. I just didn't personally like it.
No, I get you, but it actually didn't hit me until you just said it. But the reasoning that it would seem like a good move is because the Trump people love Trump no matter what, right? Like you're never getting them away from Trump as long as he's in the race. And then you have all these super pissed off Democrats who hate Joe Biden. So, I can understand that move, even though it didn't play out well. But I just wanted to say that because you actually, that's the first time I've ever thought of that. It's just the way you put that made me realize that. But
it's like states who have open primaries. If you're a Republican in a solidly Republican district and you're going up against an incumbent, you wanna make yourself look good to those Democrats who can vote in your primary, who know that no Democrat's going to run for this office. Well, hey, this Republican, he's actually making a lot more sense than the current guy who I'm not going to get vote for who I want in the end, so might as well go and vote for him. Right. It's like the same thing. It made complete sense for the LP to go, a lot of those Bernie people are mad. We should try to get them to vote for us. I just think it could have been done better.
Yeah, I think they could have not pandered at all,
Yes.
And that would have been the best, because the thing is, like, I have a bunch of friends that have said similar things to what you're saying right now, Will, and then I have a shit ton of friends that were all like, oh, I would have voted for Joe, but she was pandering to the ANCAPs too much, or the alt-right, and I'll give them a little bit of credit. I'll actually give them a little bit more credit than I'll give your argument, to be honest, because she tweeted out BLM shit like 3 times total. Her first public appearance as the nominee was on Tom Woods' podcast, so I'll give the she went too hard right a little bit more credit, because she actually like went on Tom Woods and Dave Smith and like a plenty of other like more right-wing places. She tweeted out about left-wing stuff like a dozen times over the extent of her campaign.
And I'll give you that, but at the same time, when it comes to my light went down. Yeah, you got to argue at the same time when it comes to a political campaign like that, it's all about optics, and
Right.
at a peak point of BLM being the most important thing to a lot of people. It's just that hurts you hard.
Yeah, and I
I
think
hate to be an optics cuck about that. Like I'm not.
Oh no, I'm with
not
you.
sitting over here like I'm Fuentes. Like think about the optics.
Right.
That's not what I'm trying to say, but it's like no, we're on the same page. It's just like God.
Well, the thing was, like, there was this pandering through, like, I don't know, through language and not policy, right? Like, there was no policy that she was proposing that was friendly toward the left. And that's why no one from the left voted for her. Like, nobody. I mean, it's just kind of like I said earlier, I understand, like, trying to pander to the Bernie supporters because they're the ones that are pissed off, but they don't care about criminal justice reform. They care about Medicare for all. Like that's what the Bernie base cares about. They care about economic reform, number one. Criminal justice reform is like number 4 or something. So they're not going to vote for someone who wants to abolish the minimum wage and get rid of welfare. It just, I mean,
you can't pander to the left and be an ANCAP at the same time.
Yeah, you just can't.
Like, and here's an interesting way of looking at it too. If you really want to get leftists that hate Biden on your side, it doesn't help when your entire base is already divided over you as well.
Yeah.
If the entire libertarian base had been like, yeah, Joe's our candidate, we're about it, you probably would have had more leftists go, hey, these guys are talking about some stuff over here that sounds like it's making sense. But when you literally take one step into Liberty Twitter, and it's like that gif from Community where they're swinging around fire, and you just like show up with pizza, and you're just like that's how it was for like
that's how it still is.
I mean, it still is. We're still dealing with that. But you like for 6 months there, it was like, hey, you like Joe? Yeah, go fuck yourself. That was basically how it was. And it was like, I didn't say anything. I said, are you gonna vote for Joe? Yeah, probably. Oh yeah, well, you're a fucking idiot. It's just like,
right.
Okay.
And the worst part is that we had the opportunity to run the most unifying ticket in Libertarian Party history. Joe Jorgensen and Spike Cohen could have been the most unifying ticket we've ever run, ever. Between the two of them, they had the endorsements of every single caucus in the entire party, down to the fucking Waffle House caucus, which, I mean, yeah, is Spike's thing, but like still, like they had everything covered. And we had some pretty fucking great primary candidates as well, like Judge Jim Gray, Amash was in there for a little bit, Vermin Supreme, Dan Berman, Adam Kokesh. Like, we had a powerhouse primary, all no-name like celebritarians, but still like great people that knew how to message. We could have come out of that primary with the strongest ticket the LP has ever seen. And instead, they spent a month and a half designing a logo and bitching about Spike being shirtless in a profile picture on Facebook.
Yeah, and let me tell you, the Spike stream where he wasn't wearing a shirt, like for me, I was just like,
yeah, I think all 3 of us were. I remember talking with you, Dave, like 2 days after that happened. I think it's the first time you came on my show, and we were just like, what the fuck? Like, I mean, come on.
Well, you guys know the story behind that stream, right?
No, but it doesn't. I don't know it, but no, neither did anyone else who saw it. So
optics, bro, optics.
So here's what I found out only like the next day or something. It might have been before I was actually on your show, or sorry, after I was actually on your show. But what had happened was his profile picture on Facebook. He was shirtless when he got the nomination. He's on the beach, like laying in a wave that's like crashing over him in a swimsuit and shirtless. And a bunch of people flipped out on convention day about that. That was like the whole Prague caucus apparently decided that, like, oh my God, our VP candidate is shirtless in his profile picture, and we can't have that. And we have a great upstanding woman, and her fucking VP candidate is a shirtless dipshit. So he went, fuck you guys, I'm gonna do my first media appearance shirtless too. It was like, when I found that out, I was a little bit more okay with it. Still with you on that was dumb optics, but I was like, okay, a fuck you to the Prags, like, because they were being obnoxious. I kind of dig it. And like, not a lot of people actually watched that stream, and it only pissed off libertarians, and it died really quickly before the campaign went anywhere.
Yeah, see, I think
still
if
dumb.
you're gonna be ridiculous, you have to go all the way. Like, you have to be vermin supreme. And Spike Cohen's not vermin supreme, so he, I think he's definitely chosen a serious tone since that moment. Like, that was the last time I saw him do something like that, but it just didn't really work for him.
Hard.
It's taken me a long time to get on the more being open to Spike. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not entirely invested in Spike. I don't listen to him really much. I don't follow him on Twitter, mainly just because it's just like that moment turned me off. And I come from a real, I hate that it's where I look at it, but it's just like, yeah, I like the LP at times because you can be goofy and you can be fun and you can just have goofy moments. But like, at the same time, I come from the thought of, if you ever want to be taken seriously in the United States as a political party, you need to have some amount of seriousness to you, especially when you're the vice presidential candidate. So like, that moment turned me off. And the fact that he is, made it an about face and tried to become more serious and present his ideas, realistically, which that's great. I'm glad that he's doing that. It's just like, at the same time, I was just so turned off by that moment. And for me personally, that just came from the whole, how Amash ended. I was really pissed off about that for a long time, mainly because what we were building there was just had so much
his campaign, you mean? How he ended his campaign?
Yeah. I mean, and I've gotten the full story on that since the end of it. So I'm not as mad about that now. But like,
a lot of people took that out on Joe, and that was a little unfair.
And I never thought that was Joe's fault. It was not Joe's fault at all. It's just like, for the group, like, I remember because I was staying up till like 6 a.m. at the time, like every night, working on stuff for that. And I was, none of us were paid on that group that we were working on that. We were just people literally just stuck at home on quarantine trying to get stuff done. And I woke up at like 2 p.m. to like a phone call from one of the guys on our group, and he was like, yeah, he dropped out. And I was probably angry for a month. I was just like, so I just looked for reasons to be mad. And like, Joe would say something I didn't agree with, and I was like, this is why we're never going to win. You've ruined it all. All of you ruined it. And then I, found out what really happened. And I was like, yeah. And now I look like a jackass. But
was that your first campaign you'd ever helped with, or?
Yeah. And I had just graduated from college in the last December. No, I guess now it's 2 Decembers ago, because it's 2021 now. But I had just graduated from college. I worked for a brewing company at the time, or prior to that. COVID happens. I get laid off. I had no job. I was, quarantine happens. I moved back there with my parents until I found a full place to, full-time job. That sucked. I was just sitting on my computer all day, and I threw my entire weight into that. I used my social media my social media knowledge to build a network. Everyone called it botnets. I literally ran the exact same operation that Barstool does with all their school accounts. It was the exact same thing, down to a T. I was feeding people content all day, and I was like, hey, here's this, tweet this at this time. If the main account tweets this, you retweet. It was the same thing. Like,
that's why
I would be proud.
That's why I latched on and like followed you quickly, because we were doing basically the same thing for Tulsi, and that had just ended weeks prior to me meeting you, and I wanted to do a similar thing with Amash. I saw how well that worked, and I saw you already doing it, and I was like, fuck yeah, somebody's doing it better than me. Nice.
Yeah, what I was gonna say is, I mean, I can understand your disappointment with a mosh, but after seeing Rand Paul endorse Trump and then seeing Tulsi endorse Biden, like seeing a mosh just drop out and be like, man, I guess I'm not gonna do this. For me, at least, it was like, okay, well, that sucks. I was hoping for it, but I'm just like, I came off of Ron Paul's I didn't work on Ron Paul's campaign, but I just remember seeing him like be so principled and just walk away and say, no, I'm not endorsing Romney. Why would I do that? And then two people that I was hoping for right in a row just, oh yeah, I'm just endorsing the person that, doesn't represent any of my beliefs. And so then when Amash just was like, I guess I'm not going to do it. It wasn't a big deal. But if you'd been like putting all the hours in and all the hope and everything, then yeah.
Oh yeah. Like we had someone give us Amash's campaign manager and who was his old chief of staff. I had her email address. Like I had people feeding me information. Like we had emailed her. We were like, you tell us when and you need something done. We got like we were again, did it again. We were ready to go. And then for it to end all abruptly, it was just like God. And then I was really, really hard on Joe on some of her language. I think a lot of the critical race theory stuff, that was like you said, it was like 3 tweets, but it's just like, for me at that time, especially, it was like, well, the sentiment, it makes sense. No one needs to be racist. Racism is pretty stupid. Pretty stupid. It's very stupid. And that's not the quote I ever want attached to me. It's pretty stupid. Racism sucks. Racism sucks. But to use the language that the cultural Marxists are using, come on, you got to avoid that, because you're going to polarize people. If Joe Jorgensen had tweeted, "Racism is fucking stupid," I would have been like, yes, that. Man, you can't say that as a political candidate, but it's just like,
yeah, you can.
Yeah, you can.
Fuck that.
In the LP.
In the LP, yeah. If Joe Jorgensen would have, let's make it even better, a video of her sitting there, just be like, I just want to say something. Racism, it's fucking stupid. People would have lost their goddamn minds.
Yeah, they would have loved it.
And you quote CRT, and it changes everything. And that was, for me, that was the beginning of the end of global libertarian support.
I actually, what did you think of Jacob Hornberger? If you were like super invested in Amash's campaign and then the debates, what were your thoughts about how that went?
I just shit posted him into oblivion. I had created a burner account for us to post clips on so everyone could access them. And I think on that, I was just like, there was like a solid 3 days where I was just roasting the shit out of Hornberger. And now, being friends with the Hoppians, I'm like, Hornberger isn't that bad. Like, I mean, I don't think he was ever a very winnable candidate, but I mean, he's principled.
Boring. I don't disagree with him on much of anything, but he's just in the debates, especially, he's just so abrasive and so.
Well, he asked Amash, and I can still see it in my head. I can't remember the words, but he's talking about an abortion bill he was calling out on, and Amash was like, "Well, do you have the bill number?" Like, I think it was Senate Bill 92, and Amash was like, "Oh yeah, I remember this blah 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 blah." I think it's principled that and personally, I think that it's my duty as the president to protect the rights of all Americans. I think that the unborn have rights. I'm going to protect them, and he was just like, okay. Like, he had no response to that. He didn't expect Amash to remember the bill he was talking about. And then, and I would say when it came to Amash, that was the big issue in that debate too. That real one, the Tennessee debate. He had a target paint on his back, obviously.
Right.
But either they didn't attack him, like Joe didn't attack him, Gray didn't attack him. No one attacked him. And I think that was the right way to go. Just don't attack the guy. Just let him debate, act like, But Hornberger, who, I think at the time when Amash joined, he was, in the lead.
Yeah.
Basically. He felt defensive. And then Vermin is Vermin. And Vermin made the really, it just didn't land. He was like, I think I donated to your campaign. Can I have my money back? And Amash immediately went, did you? And he goes, yeah, I believe so. And he's like, are you sure you can have your money back if you want? And I think he donated $4.20. It's just like,
that sounds about right. Yeah.
you're just like, yeah, you can have your 420 back. Yeah, for sure. And it just didn't work. And it made Amash laugh. That's the thing. It was like intended to be like a gotcha. And it was just like, if you want your money back, man, you can have it back. And it's like Amash ended that campaign making a lot of people feel better. I mean, that debate making everyone feel better. But I would even argue now in retrospect, he wasn't the leader still after that debate. It was going to take another debate or two to get him making feel comfortable. Like Drew from the OKLP, who I'm friends with now. At the time, I wasn't. At the time, we were like talking. It's like, we need to reach out to electors from your state and try to get him in. And Drew was an elector, and Drew was not feeling Amash at all. None of the OKLP was. I talked to him and said, I think they said even in the end they were still going to be Joe. After that, Drew was like, you know what, I'm feeling him a little bit more. Like, I'm not ready to commit, but I'm feeling him a little bit more. And,
so are you open to Amash in the future? He's actually like who I'm hoping for, but I want him to change. Like, I want the LP to make him better, because he's great, but he doesn't have like the fire, like he's almost too nice. He's like too timid a little bit.
I think the same way. I have to agree with you. He is too timid, but at the same time, he needs to get over the TDS he has.
Yes, that was what I was going into next. Like, I understand why it exists, but Trump is gone now, and we need the Trump supporters. We need the Republicans to join us.
That and the Patriot Party is never going to happen. As much as Trump wants to talk about it, it's never going to become a thing. We as third-party people know the Patriot Party is not the Bull Moose Party. It's not going to just be like, Trump's not going to be like, here's the deal, okay, I'm running as a third party. You're all going to vote for me. A majority of those Republican voters are going to be like, but Ted Cruz is doing pretty well, so I think I'm going to vote for him.
Yeah, right.
That's how it's going to work. So I think if
he wouldn't win, but he could get some congressmen.
Probably.
With how much money he has. That's the biggest problem with the LP is we're all broke. With the amount of money that he has, he could definitely flip some congressional seats, or like fucking finally get Mitch McConnell out. Like, but he could just like general Mitch McConnell.
Mitch McConnell's not running again after this term, thankfully. But
you make a good point.
Well, that's not even really the point. The point is who are you going to get? Marjorie Taylor Greene, who thinks the Jews have space lasers causing wildfires? Like, come on. The Death Star of David is the biggest threat to the United States, according to Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh my God, is that her quote, or did you just come up with that?
I made up with that, but the Jewish
Death Star of David's made up. We got to be careful here because it's hard to tell what's satire. The Death Star of David's made up. The Jewish space laser is real.
Reed, you just got to trust. You just got to trust the plan.
Trust the plan.
I am Q. I'm just going to tell you to trust the plan.
Yeah, there was some video. There's a video like a week ago. This guy who's a perfectly straight face. He's like, there are so many Trump supporters that said they believed him, and it's obvious that their faith has faltered. And he's just like so calm and everything. He's smoking a cigar, and he's like, some of us know that everything's fine. And they're like, Joe Biden isn't the president. He will never be president. I'm just like, oh God!
I think it was
the paperwork hasn't been signed or something. I was like, oh, okay.
Well, I mean, there was one Q thing that said is like, it's all Project Blue. Actually, that might have just been me memeing for like a solid 2 days. Where it's like, it's all Project Blue Beam. It's all holograms. It's not really Biden. There was one that was like the face-off one. It was like, it's really Trump.
Mm-hmm.
It's Biden.
I saw that one. I saw legitimate people that believed that shit.
How is it Trump? The body type has changed. If it was face off, they'd have just different faces. Come on, Q people.
Trump lost 100 pounds and switched faces with Joe Biden and grew 3 inches. And somehow Mike Pence became a young black woman.
So
I don't know how that would happen. Or is she actually Trump's VP? Because is that part of Q's thing? Is like she's actually Trump's VP because Kamala Harris isn't actually a Democrat?
Actually, Kamala Harris isn't real, and she's actually all a figment of our imagination.
God, I wish that was true.
I think you shared the video of Alex Jones just like getting hyped up before he goes on air, and he's just like, "Fuck Trump, fuck the Republicans, fuck the."
Yeah, that was definitely me. I tweet out too much Alex Jones. Truthfully, I was thinking in my head how I was gonna introduce myself before we came on here, and we actually had a legitimate conversation. I was gonna say, this is about to be like the Joe Rogan episode where he has Alex Jones on, but it's gonna be me. I am the human shitpost. That's why I have the Jeb hat on. And I was like, yeah, I'm the human shitpost. Buy my supplements. I'm gonna get everybody after this ready to follow me on Twitter because I'm gonna tweet all this crazy shit. And we actually have actual nice conversations because I am not Alex Jones.
Mm-hmm. Because YouTube is better than Twitter.
Yeah, you can be Alex Jones on Twitter. You can be like as similar as you want, but then when you get in front of a camera, you have to actually start making sense when you start talking. It's crazy.
Well, that too, and it's just like on Twitter, I just like to be as goofy as I want because it's like, who gives a shit? It's Twitter. But like, and honestly, that's my biggest downfall. I mentioned the Brianna Coyle thing earlier. She always likes to cite a monarchy meme I posted ironically, and I'm just like, I should have never tweeted that. Because it was 100% ironic, and it was at a friend, and I was just like, there's been a lot of bad monarchs, but monarchy is not bad. It was cringe, and I was just like, just clearly being a troll. And it's just like, it gets brought up, like, see, you're a monarchist, and I was like, yeah, it's taken out of context, and I can't refute that because it's just a picture. There's no context.
I love how many people fucking comment on my profile picture. Because I had a mask on in it for a while because it was legitimately the best picture I had of myself. And then I got so much shit posting about that I finally changed it to the only other recent picture I had of myself, which was taken in a suit store wearing a pink, like, plaid three-piece suit and a white fedora. And so many people fucking go after me as if, like, that's how I dress regularly. Like, do you really think that I look like the fucking dude from the Penguin scene in Mary Poppins every day? Like, what the fuck? Like, I started taking screenshots of it because it was so often. I'm going to make a collage eventually of so many people calling me, like, a fedora faggot. And I'm like, dude, not cool.
David
like,
Globo Homo Fight. Bringing great shame to our last name with your ironic profile pics. Don't worry, though. I do it enough for the both of us.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but I tweeted out something. Well, I've tweeted a lot of things sarcastically that people just don't understand. And finally, I made a tweet that said, look, if you guys are too stupid to understand my humor, that's your problem, not mine.
It was your gun post.
Oh, that one too. Yeah. God, did you see that, Will? You would have loved that one. Let me actually read it because it's amazing. It's I think I can remember it. It's like, I say, okay, guys, I am pro Second Amendment, but when we start talking about, what did I say? When we start talking about clips that can hold 100 magazines or long clip 40 caliber assault stocks, I think we've lost what the founder's thinking. And last I looked, it's got over 2,000 likes from people who get it, but then it's got like 400 quote tweets or something, and it's all these people like, this guy doesn't support the Second Amendment, or like.
So I read it before I saw who it was from, and like halfway through, I was like, who the fuck is this guy? And then I looked up, and I was just like, oh, that's so sarcastic. I was just like, favorite, and kept on scrolling. I was just like, anyone who reads that, and the way you wrote it too, I was like, anyone who reads that and just immediately gets mad, just don't realize how blatantly sarcastic it is. What you said, something mega like clearly is like, come on, dude, come on. Unless the name is David Hogg on that tweet, do not take it seriously.
Oh man, yeah, it was. I mean, I think most people just got to the but. They saw like, I'm pro Second Amendment, but, and then they just didn't even keep reading. And to be honest, I can understand why they get pissed, because you have like all these people like, oh, I'm pro Second Amendment, except for those scary assault weapons, or like, and this is another subject. Like it just pisses me off with the Constitution. You can't be like, I support such and such amendment, but that's what's going on with the First Amendment now. It's been going on with the Fourth Amendment. It's been going on with the 10th Amendment. It's just like, if you have a but, why do we even have a fucking constitution? What's the point?
The minute you say but, it's obvious you don't support it.
Right.
I support the First Amendment, but nothing.
Right.
Get out of here.
I'm reading currently my favorite book I have ever read, and it is, hold on, I'll pull it down because it's right here. The Politically Incorrect Guide to the Constitution.
Sounds beautiful.
It is fucking great. And I'll admit, it's not from a standpoint that I read very often, because it's actually like from the person that wrote it clearly is biased towards the Articles of Confederation, which is a point of view that I do not interact with often, and is a very like highly critical take on the Constitution, but also like I agree with everything he's saying. So I'm like, this is dope.
One of those types that says the articles were written by people who were escaping tyranny. The Constitution was written by types who had tasted power. One of those types. Which to an extent that's historically correct, because all it did was make an actually strong federal government. Like, okay, so I got a degree in history, so it's just like that stuff really irks me, because it's just like they literally teach you, that McGraw-Hill education. That's always what my friends and I call it, who are history majors and study history. We're like, oh, that McGraw-Hill education. You clearly read a high school history book. And it's just like, well, the founders had the Constitutional Convention because the federal government wasn't strong enough to do things like create a national currency and defense, and they just sneak in there at the end and collect taxes. It's just like, really? They couldn't collect taxes, so they created a stronger federal government. The irony in that.
So, Will, you're a big Thomas Massey fan, and
yeah,
he's certainly my favorite congressman. He was before the new Congress too. I don't know if Dave shared. Is that the same with you, Dave? Or
currently, I believe that is correct. I'm giving Pete Mayer a chance here because he seems to be pretty dope. And I need to look into him a little bit more, but Amash's replacement seems to be following in his footsteps pretty well. Yeah, he's about the only challenger at the moment. I would like to see either Ayanna Pressley or Rashida Tlaib carry on some of what they were doing in 2020. Both of them stepped out in ways that I wasn't expecting them to, and that was cool to watch.
But they don't compete with Thomas Massey, right?
Not quite. There was a chance there if like the End Qualified Immunity Act actually had gone through, and like Ayanna Pressley kept doing stuff like that, there would have been a chance. But then she kind of folded after that bill folded.
Was when I was the most pissed at Massey I think I've ever been, is when he didn't co-sponsor that bill that Amash introduced. But anyway, he is, he's definitely my favorite. So, Will, do you think we have any chance of bringing him to the Libertarian Party, or is he stuck in the Republican Party since he doesn't really have much of a fear of losing a seat or anything? Or what do you think?
I will kind of put me in an interesting spot here. No, it'll never happen.
No,
it'll never happen. Can't say why I think that, but I will say it's never going to happen. Yeah, I guess I gotta kind of leave it at that. I can give you some Massey stories, but I can say I don't foresee him joining the Libertarian Party anytime in the near future. I used to think he would, but I think he knows, like a lot of Republican legislators who would actually love to be in the LP know the same thing, is that in their district, if they were to jump ship, all the Republican Party would do is say, well, they left you. You were their constituency for how long? And they left you. And I think it's like the same reason that Amash didn't run again as a Libertarian, is he knew he was going to face that. So no, I don't see Massey, unless something like giant happens, like you have a giant influx of Libertarians into Congress. Mm-hmm. I don't see Massey joining the Libertarian Party anytime soon. I think he would have to lose his seat to another Republican before he does that, and I'm pretty sure he won his seat by 74% of the vote last time. So I don't see it happening, but
What
he's
about
our
like
best
the little
shot.
Massies, like Nick Freitas or Matt Gertler?
Maybe Freitas. If Freitas loses as a Republican again, maybe. If he gets his base act like fired up enough where they realize that he is, principled, which he is. But if he gets him, you know what? The Republican Party's going downhill. Maybe it's time we reach out to another base, and you get the Libertarian base, which I'm sure he already has. But you don't have you can't get you're not going to get the registered Libertarian voters, who vote straight line Libertarian. Because as much as we don't like to believe they exist. Straight ticket Libertarians do exist because they believe they're fighting for the fight, which they are. But you get people like Freitas who haven't won those House seats. You're gonna get it more likely, but I don't think we see another Amash type situation where they switch, whether it be Massey or anyone else, because they saw what happened to Amash. Like C-SPAN wouldn't put the name Libertarian up on votes.
Yeah,
like it's deeply ingrained. I think you have to get more Libertarians in Congress. You're going to have to do it the right way. I mean, when I say right way, I mean you're going to have to get him elected.
Yeah.
Jumping ship is not going to work. Like, I honestly, as much as it pains me to say it, Amash is not the first Libertarian congressman in my eyes. He was the first congressman who happened to be a Libertarian because he joined after the fact. You want to be the first Libertarian in Congress? Get elected.
Yeah, I mean, I want to point out, too, with Massey, I don't like him any less as a Republican. It would just be the validation if he were to come over. But I think you're right that we've got to actually get him elected at some point. It's a I don't know, it's a two-way struggle. It sucks because people aren't going to join until they know it's viable, but you've got to make it viable. You have to get people to join to make it viable. So it's just kind of this.
But and to be honest, I hate to Yale's in such a bad light right now because of everything that happened. But you look at the Yale model of going after state representative seats. I think that's the way you do it. I've always thought. I thought that when I was helping the Amash thing happen. I was literally talking to those guys. I think this is what we need to do. You need to get state representatives elected to state houses so you can say, look, we have people elected in legislative roles in different states across the country. They can do the job of being legislators. They can get elected. They can be principled, and they can do the right thing. They're not going to, just make everything into, the ANCAPs are going to hate me for this. It's not going to turn into absolute lawless anarchy. Because let's be honest, a majority of the people in this country want there to be a state. So they're aiming for that minarchist state. They actually fight for it. That's how you need to be able to prove to people that, hey, we're ready for an elected libertarian congressman. Like, look, let's say, what was it, in Wyoming, the fellow that got elected? I can't remember his name. He got elected because, Yale helped and everything. And he was part of their say it's 10 years down the road and he's been kicking ass in Wyoming and people know that he kicks ass and he runs into Congress as a libertarian and people can look at his record and be like, look at how principled he was as a legislator. Let's send him to Washington now. That's the way you're going to have to do it. And you can't have it just be one person. You have to do it all over the country. And then it's to get a libertarian president, it's going to be the same thing. You're going to need a libertarian governor first. I'm in full support of Justin Amash running for governor of Michigan.
Same here. Gretchen Whitmer is a god-awful human being.
I will tell you this. Michigan is in my region for my job. The amount of shit I have to deal with in regards to Gretchen Whitmer is insane. I have to read about 15 different articles a week about how much she sucks. I'll tell you this. I think Amash, if you get Amash up there against a Republican who's clearly a rhino, which, let's be honest, it's probably who they're going to run. It is a Republican Party. He can have a real chance.
The Republican Party of Michigan has not been systemically terrible. I'll say Amash is going to have a harder time than say Larry Sharp in New York is going to have. against their prospective Republican opponents. You know, they still elected Amash as a Republican and then mayor to replace him. You know, the last governor before Whitmer was kind of sucky, but not terrible. Um, you know, the Flint water crisis exists, but other than that, like Michigan's politics is cleanish. It's one of the reasons it's one of like it's in my top 3 states that I will probably live in, and like when I actually stop moving around every 6 months.
I think it's interesting to look at, you could look at Michigan and compare it to Indiana in this last gubernatorial election with Donald Rainwater.
Yes.
That's a Republican incumbent who was very disliked. He still won, but I think you have to look at it in the sense of he probably won for a lot of the the MAGA.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I've been talking with people who said that in the end it was a lot of Democrats who voted for Holcomb because they felt it was better to vote for the enemy you know than the enemy you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that comes down to it, whether you could say in Amash in Michigan. I think I don't think you're going to find a lot of Democrats who absolutely hate Whitmer. As you might. I might regret that statement in the end.
I spent 3 months of 2020 in Michigan. There's a shit ton of them.
So you might find a lot of people who look at Amash.
She might lose a primary. Legitimately.
That would be beautiful. I think we could. So actually, there's the beautiful thing about it. She loses a primary, or Mosh runs for governor. You have a Republican who not a lot of people like. You have a primary candidate who was voted for in the Democrats is because Whitmer sucks, and then you have a proven legislator who's a principled individual in Justin Amash. His thing is going to be the whole statement he made about open carrying in the Michigan Capitol back in April. Where he was like, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't do that. Like, that's literally the basis of his statement. And like, I had people and libertarians telling me they were pissed about that. And I was like, really? All he said is, I don't think it's right for people to threaten their legislators with guns, which that's true. I don't think
It's not nice.
Not nice.
We have the right to do it, though.
Yeah, I do kind of appreciate when that type of thing happens, though. I got to be honest. Especially with the Capitol storming, I wouldn't have been there with them for the Stop the Steal thing, but the pictures that were coming out of all the legislators like huddling, terrified, 2 weeks after they passed that fucking omnibus bill that sent hundreds of billions overseas, that they all fucking voted for.
I think I tweeted it today. I did tweet it today. I tweeted it today. AOC was throwing a big fit about how terrified she was, hiding and everything. And I was like, while AOC hid, Massey armed himself with an AR-15 and discussed rules of engagement with his staff in his barricaded office.
Yeah.
I was just like passive aggressive, just another little story from the Capitol.
What I love is the fact that like AOC's office isn't even in the fucking Capitol building. Can we just all acknowledge that for a second?
Neither is Massey's either. They were both just hunkered down because they didn't know what the hell was going on.
Right.
But like AOC's like, I was terrified. I was like, why?
Ted Cruz almost had me murdered. What?
Yeah, I mean, I made a video about this earlier today. Weaponized cancel culture is a thing. Like I used to never care about cancel culture. Like people would be like, "Oh, political correctness is ruining this country," and I was always just like, "Why don't you just be nice to people and be respectful?" And I still feel that way, but I am realizing like how it can be weaponized to silence dissent. Like if you want to say AOC is overreacting right now, if I say that, I'm a sexist. I just had Ryan Dawson on my show, and he's been banned from YouTube for criticizing Israel, but he's an anti-Semite because he criticizes Israel. And so if you stick up for him, you're also an anti-Semite. Like just having him on my show, I got criticism from some people who were upset,
I guess to piggyback on that, it's like I'm very critical of all the money we give to Israel for aid.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to be careful with that to publicly say that if I ever want a career in anything, because literally you say one time, I don't think we should be giving $6 billion a year to Israel for weapons that they can then use to kill brown people. And It's just like, what? You said we shouldn't do what? Israel? Nope. Bro, you're anti-Semite, bro. I'm sorry.
Yeah, right.
And it's just like, actually, I have no hatred of the Jewish people at all. I've taken multiple Jewish studies courses in college. It's just like, bro, I know probably more about Jews than half the people that call me an anti-Semite do. It's just
it's like if you say you don't like Kim Jong Un and the North Korean regime, that you hate Asians. It's just like, what? Like,
makes no sense.
It's such
if you ask the UN though, if you say anything bad about the People's Republic, you do hate Chinese people.
Oh, okay.
I hate to break that to you.
My bad.
That's from both the UN Security Council and the World Health Organization. So I just want to put that message out to everybody. If you criticize the People's Republic, I hate to tell you, but you're a bigot, and you clearly hate Asian sovereignty or some stupid.
This also loops back to America though, because I've had my super conservative Republican friends tell me that I hate America because of what I say about the government. I'm like, dude, I love the people of this country and I love this country. Like, I like the land and the people and the nature in it, but I do hate the state. Like, the United States government is one of the worst abominations ever conceived by man on this planet in human history. Like, it's one of the worst things.
See, and I look at that. I think before you deactivated your old account, you favored a tweet about this. I had it. It's like, there's a difference between a nationalist and a patriot. A nationalist thinks the state that you belong to, or I guess you're owned by in some instances, it can do no wrong, and it is the greatest thing. An American nationalist thinks the United States is the greatest thing to ever bless the face of the earth, and we do no wrong. And everyone just needs to realize that what the government wants to do is good if you just let them do it. A patriot is someone who loves our country, as in our collective group of people who have come together to try to enact these ideas, these, to use a buzzword that libertarians love, our classical liberal roots of ideology and of letting people, practice their own religion and not judge a man by the color of his skin. In some instances in our history, it's not judge a man by the color of his skin. That took a little bit while to figure out, but we got there. But you can still be critical of what we do as a country. It's like Iraq is terrible. Iraq, what we did doing in Yemen is terrible. Right. Honestly, it takes a lot for me to admit this, but it's like the 2 atomic bombs in Japan. In the long run, we're probably going to be looked really bad at that. There's some people who argue that it was needed. Some people who say it wasn't. I'm halfway in between both. The first one was probably a little bit needed. The second one, that was overkill.
Agreed.
But ultimately, my point is you can be critical. Like, I can say, yeah, slavery was fucked, bro. You can also describe how it was never supposed to get to the 1860s if you look at the way the founders looked at slavery and, the cotton gin invention and all that shit. But then, that's a nuance of being cursed of knowledge of history. But you can say slavery is shitty, and it sucks that we had to fight each other over it to get rid of it. But hey, at the same time, being critical of us for that helped us grow. Mm-hmm. Hey, segregation is shitty. Let people interact with who they want to interact with. The state can't force people to not be, together if they want to be. That's being critical of our country. But I can still love my country. You can still say, hey, I like living here, but hey, let's just not, be racist fucks all the time.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like if you have a family member, if you actually love them and you see them, injecting heroin every weekend and, eating shitty food and, being a piece of shit to their spouse or whatever, like, you're gonna, if you actually love, say it's your brother or whatever, if you actually love him, you're gonna say, hey, dude, what are you doing? You're like, knock it off. Let's take like, if you're gonna take care of yourself, right? Like, if you actually care about yourself, you're gonna exercise, you're gonna eat well. You're not just gonna continue to eat shit and just be like, I'm not gonna, this is great. Like, I'm doing good. I know I weigh 500 pounds and I can't walk, but like, if you actually care, you're gonna want positive change.
It's like full circle, like the Hoppians from earlier. Hey, quit watching porn, eat a salad, read a book, take care of yourself, man. It's like that, but just not as a fellow person. It's just like, your country you live in, but like it also, extends to your fellow man also. But it's just like, that's what it is. That's what patriotism is. It's just caring about people. Like, I'm a big fan of the melting pot. I believe it's a great thing in reality, a bunch of cultures coming together and learning from one another. We have problems when we come all together that we need to still work out. And it's all of us as cultures coming together have problems towards one another. And everyone looks at America and goes, why is it such a dumpster fire? Because we're trying to do something that has literally never fucking happened before.
Yeah.
It's just like, you can love the idea of that, but still be critical of how we're doing. We're doing a pretty shitty job right now. But I think ultimately we could make it work. Mm-hmm. I would hate to see it break up. Like, I mean, I'm friends with some people who are pro secession. We need to just get like-minded people together and do their own thing. And it's like, some days I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. But then the other days I'm like, you know what? No, this is too important of a test of humanity to just say, fuck it. You guys over here, go over there. We'll stay here. You guys stay there. And all of us like-minded people will stay together. And I call myself a pragmatic minarchist for that reason. I would much rather work to make our state smaller and make everybody get along than just to say fuck it and just become an anarchist and say, well, I just need to stick with me and mine. I think my ultimate end goal in my life anyway is to have my own little place in the middle of Montana with me and mine and my friends, and we all live together and not interact with anybody. But that's like down the line when I don't want to deal with people anymore because I spent my life trying to make America a better place. Yeah. But I'm tired of the people who are assholes all the time. I can go escape to that. But before I hit that point, I'm going to try my damnedest to make sure that we actually, try to get the goal of what America was to completion.
Yeah. Well, that's a good full circle ending. We've been talking for quite a while. I don't know if anyone's going to watch this thing end to end, but we'll have to do it again. We'll have to make the Fite show a common appearance on the.
Oh yeah,
on the National Capitalist.
Love that.
We got some chemistry. Maybe we'll invite Brianna eventually. If we get around.
Yeah, that would honestly be electric. You'd be the electric factory,
dude. We could get like a whole graphic, like fight night. It's like Will versus Brianna. Like, you're the announcer, I'm the ref. Like,
we can live stream it. You could get people who want to watch that. The Hoppy would watch it.
Yeah, we share it on Twitter.
It'd be electric.
That shit. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We'll do it again, and thanks everyone for watching.
Yeah, real quick though, I promised someone I would give him a shout out before I got off tonight. He's 10 years old. He's trying to get into the gaming YouTube. His YouTube name is Tel Aviv Gamer. Give the kid a check out. He's literally living the dream. I'm sure at one point all of us thought we'd love to make video game videos on YouTube. Right when YouTube was peaking. So give that kid a check out if you want to. Give him a follow. Like, subscribe. I don't know what you guys do on Twitter anymore, or on YouTube anymore. I'm not on it, but I appreciate you having me on. I'm glad we could have the first actual fight night happen. I think this is the first time David and I have really gotten to really talk to each other. Reed, I think this is the first time you and I have really ever gotten to talk to each other.
It is.
It was a lot of fun, and we should definitely do it again. We should get the ultimate debate set up. I'd be really interested in that. It'd be all in good fun, though. Mm-hmm. We could stream it. But anyway, great time. I really appreciate you having me on, and I had a great fun.